Hello, I'm Morris Griffin, better known as Big Money Griff, community activist, leader, and problem solver. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank the late, great Johnny Cochran, who's been very instrumental in my life when it comes to evaluating evidence, and those of you who participated in helping me with this fact-finding evidence. We, the people of California, asked Attorney General Eric Holder to consider prosecutorial misconduct charges against the Stanford, Florida prosecutors. We believe that George Zimmerman inflicted his injuries on his head with his own gun. And so we're here today to reveal to you how he could have done that, according to the evidence by Sarah Mara and according to the actual injuries. These lacerations that was on the back of George Zimmerman's head really reflect what we see when it comes to the pin and the notch to George Zimmerman's gun. We can clearly see that the notch matches this injury and the pin matches this injury. Clearly, that fits just like a puzzle. And so we're saying that when we look at the U on George Zimmerman's head, we can honestly and truthfully say, isn't it ironic that when we look at the shape of the gun in the back part, it actually matches this U here. Why do I say that? Because if George was to hit himself, boom, like that, isn't it ironic that that U also lines up with the notch? Can you see that? This is why we are in an uproar, nationally speaking, with Reverend Al Sharpton and other groups and organizations throughout the United States, because if it doesn't fit, then you must acquit. And this is where it shows that the evidence fits the crime that we're alleging, that George Zimmerman actually assaulted himself when it comes to this manner. And so it goes with me saying that we're asking the DOJ, the Department of Justice, to actually look at the facts pertaining to the evidence when we look at George Zimmerman's testimony, when George said that Trayvon was on top of him. And I will demonstrate for you what George said. George said that Trayvon was on top of him in this manner, and that Trayvon said, boom, 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 boom. And then George said that Trayvon put his hands over his mouth. And you know, and I know, with all that blood, how come there was no blood on Trayvon's hands? Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that you cannot get rid of the DNA. According to the forensic pathologist, there was no DNA on Trayvon's hands. But the testimony that George gave was that Trayvon put his hands over George's mouth. Now, I don't know about you, but DOJ, Department of Justice, according to George, George said that he was standing away from Trayvon, and that Trayvon approached him and hit him. After he hit him, the blood should have came then. A fight occurred. He says that Trayvon ended up on top of him and proceeded to slam his head up against the cement sidewalk to the point that he was almost losing his conscience. After he shot Trayvon, he gets up, according to Sarah Mara, she says that she sees George walking back and forth, hitting himself on the back of his head, walking back and forth. Now that's the testimony that she gave.
Regresó mientras hacía ese recorrido, tocaba su cabeza con una mano.
He walked towards the receptacles, then he walked back, and while he was doing this pacing, he would put his hands up on his head.
Una mano, la
One
otra la
hand.
tenía en su cadera, ¿no?
And he had the other hand on his waist.
All right. Can you stand up for us and just place your hands how the man had his hands when he was walking around?
Tú puedes, por favor, entonces ponerte de pie y poner las manos en la posición en que la tenía el hombre según iba caminando.
Así.
Like this.
All right. And Judge, for the record, her right hand was on her head and her left hand was on her left hip.
In addition to that, George goes to work the very next day. And he refuses medical assistance. Now, if that is in fact true, and it is, how do you justify that? So we're asking the DOJ to bring charges against the Florida prosecutors for prosecutorial misconduct, for not bringing this information out in the closing arguments. We feel that the Florida prosecutors were grossly negligent in every way, shape, form, and fashion